Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. I like to title this segment, Things That We Hear and See and Say. Things that we hear and say that doesn't match up with that which we see. Once again, I like to title this segment, Things That We Hear and Things That We Say that does not match up with the things that we see. Let's deal with one of the things that I'm hearing my people say on YouTube, and I've heard them say these things in person. One of them being, one is, the black man is God. Now, there are many of us that's uttering this madness that we are gods and the black man is God. Now, if the black man is God, how come that we are in a perpetual state of ruin? How come we have been enslaved by Europeans and taken all across the earth, have been stripped of everything? We live in nations where we have absolutely no power. We do not make the rules, and we're subjugated to the cruelty of those who rule over us. If God has the power to change his circumstances, in fact, if God has the power not to be in that circumstance in the first place. So we are powerless people, and we're saying things that when we look around, we see that that is not so. So why our people continue to say that the black man is God when his children was taken away from him and he was powerless, when his wife was taken away from him and he's powerless, when he's being shot down in the street and he is powerless, and all the different manner of things that's happening to us in these many nations by which we have no might to stand before our enemies. This is not the position of a God. This is nothing but the position of a man. Two, the black woman is God. This is another bit of nonsense I'm hearing our people say. Now, the black woman has been subjugated to all types and manners of hardship. Her man has been taken away from her. Her children were taken away and sold from her. She has had to endure many hardships throughout the diaspora. And many of times, many of years, I've seen our sisters on the TV screaming and crying because their sons have been shot, because their husbands have been shot. And it's a heartbreaking thing to see our people in such a powerless position. And here's the thing. The black man being God is unable to help her. And if the black woman is God, she's unable to help herself. And therefore we're suffering as a collective. The men are suffering, and so are our women. And that means definitely our children are suffering as well, because we are unable to save them also. So the black woman being God is not true. The black man being God is not true, because both of them, both of us, both our males and our females are in a situation where we are powerless in our current circumstance. Three, the temple is within you. I was having a conversation with a man who I know to be a man of above average intelligence. However, he has been to seminary. And so we were having a discussion. And, you know, I pretty much mentioned to him that the Most High only had two temples built onto him, and they were not built at the same time, but they were built on the same spot. I said, where do you think the third temple is going to be? Now, this man who I consider to be of above average intelligence looked me dead in the face and told me that the body is the temple. And I said, is that right? So I said, no one has ever turned and faced me. No one has ever gone into my body and light incense or made a sacrifice or stored any grain or anything. The body is not the temple. The temple is the temple. So we have our people saying all manner of stupidity, and it's because our people have been brainwashed. These are brainwashed Christians, and they only repeat that which the Europeans have taught them in these seminary schools. And these are individuals that do not walk in the ways of the Most High. So no, the body is not the temple. The temple of the Most High has specific dimensions. My body is not the temple. No one comes into me, no priest comes into me to light incense or burn sacrifices on an altar. And if you look at the dimension of the human body and the dimensions specifically written out of the Most High's temple, clearly they're not the same. So we're to stop repeating and uttering this nonsense, because the things that we're hearing and the things that we're saying does not match up with what we're seeing. They're clashing. Those are quick to say also things that people are saying. 4.4, I'm a New Testament Christian. Okay. Well, or I'm a Christian, period. If you're going to say that, that's fine. You might as well say I'm a white supremacist. You might as well say I'm a child molester. You might as well say I'm a murderer. You might as well say I'm an upholder of everything that's wicked, because that's what Christianity has done. When the Romans conquered, all of this was done in the name of the Pope, slavery being one of them. This was done in the name of the Catholic Church, which later on became what you call the Protestant churches or the evangelical churches. Same thing. This is nothing but the splintering of the Roman Catholic Church, and thus you have Christianity. It is paganism, it is idolatry, it is wickedness, it is everything contrary to the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. So when you see our people act in a wicked manner as their enemies, we must be mindful that they are our enemies. They're just the enemies within. So therefore, when you look at the quote unquote white supremacist, this is a black Christian. And that is why when you see anything pertaining to the white supremacist, from the highest Klansman to the Ku Klux Klan, the Grand Dragon, and the Grand Imperial Wizard, and all of these murderers of our people and these haters of our people, they're all Christians. And somehow we seek to be like those who hate us. This is something that we must consider. Point 5, I am blessed and highly favored. My position on that is always really, because I'm always inclined to ask, blessed by whom? Most of our people that are saying this have a bunch of health issues, have a bunch of issues altogether in life. All they've ever known is strife and affliction. But somehow they have this thing about they're blessed and highly favored when they're struggling. They have health problems. They have relationship problems. They just have a multitude of problems and nothing but hardship before them each and every day. And that's all that they have ever known. But somehow they'll put a smile on their face and tell you that they are blessed and highly favored when they are walking after idols. And those two things clashes. 6, I'm hearing it now, many of our people saying, I stay prayed up. And when they ask me that, I ask them, who are you praying to and how do you pray? And then they're looking at me like I have 3 heads, for the simple fact that they don't know how to pray. And when they tell me who they're praying to that Roman idol called JC. So they're sitting down, they can tell you all of their problems and they know exactly where the source of their problem is. But then when they go in their homes and they get on their knees and do the sign of the cross and put their hands together, something that we're not supposed to do, they're praying to an idol. And the very idol that they're praying to in their image, it just happens to be the same people that's killing them. And they can't figure it out. So while they're out here praying and staying prayed up to an idol, the people that looks like that idol are constantly plotting their demise. And they, for some reason, our people are shocked by this. Point 7, you will hear our people say, God spoke to me this morning. Many of these Christians, these Romans, these idolaters, these white supremacists that look like me in the pulpit calling themselves pastors and reverends, will actually look our people in the face in a vast number in a group and tell them that God woke them up this morning and God spoke to them and all of these things. These men do not walk in the ways of the Most High, do not follow after his law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. They are standing in a very building of idolatry, speaking this to idolaters who do not have the words of the Most High in their heart, who do not know the Torah, who does not walk in it. So therefore, they're unable to contend with that which is being said to them by this man who is stating that God spoke to him this morning. And the Most High took away our prophets. The Most High took away the visions, for the simple fact that when the visions was brought through the prophets and told to the house of Israel, we disregarded it. So therefore, he covered our seers to where they would not be able to hear his voice, they would not be able to see any visions or anything like that. So when our people come before you, these pastors talking about God spoke to them this morning, and they're in a house of idol worship, walking after a Roman idol called JC, these men are liars. Point 8. You see, right before our people get ready to eat, or when they're in their idol house, they will stand up and hold and grab each other's hands and talk about, let's hold hands and bow in prayer. So you have a bunch of Israelites standing around in a big old line at a dinner table, holding each other's hands and murmuring. Or they're standing in a place called a church, holding each other's hands. They have the shoes on their feet, they're grabbing each other's hands, and they call that praying. And you will never, and I read, never read where any of the patriarchs at any time prayed and was holding someone else's hand. This has never happened, nor were they praying standing on their feet with their shoes on. These things never happened. So this is the confusion of our people when we say one thing and then we go into this book and we look at our records, and that which we're saying and that which we're doing is very contrary, and it's a clear contrast to that which we have done and that which we were instructed to do in the days of old. So at no time will we join hands and hold hands with someone else and pray. You will not see that in our records anywhere. And there's many accounts where the prophets and the people made their supplication towards the Most High. You will never read where they stood there with their shoes on, held each other's hand, put their head down to the ground, and prayed. What you're doing is not praying, you're murmuring. And those of you who murmur, you will learn doctrine. Next, point 9. Our people are saying there is no law. JC died for us. As soon as you mention the law to them, they say that there is no law. And to that I say, really? I said, well, if there is no law, then that equals lawlessness, doesn't it? And if there is no law, then there could not possibly be a judgment day, for on a judgment day, there needs to be a judge. And a judge has to render a decision or a judgment based upon established law. At that point, they have a stupid look on their faces, because these are the things that they've never considered, and these are the things that the Most High has not given them the wisdom to consider. Point 10. We'll hear our people say, he's going straight to hell. Now, I will always say, really? I said, nay, I would sometimes challenge him to say, name me one person that went to hell before that person that you just mentioned that you said was going to hell. Show me one account where anywhere out of the books of the law and the prophets, in the book of remembrance, when the Most High walked in the midst of us, show me a man that went to hell or was sent to hell. That way I know that the man that you're talking about that's going straight to hell, show me someone that went to hell before him. And then you have that stupid look on their faces once again. This is the kind of thing that you hear out of the mouth of dummies. Those who are unread, those who are unlearned, those who murmur, those who walk not in the ways of the Most High. He has caused them to be confused and confounded, for they have that stumbling block in their hearts. So therefore, they're running around and bumping into walls and falling into traps and snares everywhere when they utter such nonsense. Next, they may say, you hear our people say at point 11, the ancestors woke me up this morning. And then you hear him say also, the ancestors spoke to me this morning. It's the same old Christian nonsense that you hear out of these men in the pulpit who walk not in the Most High's law, who does not uphold the Most High standard. No ancestor, no dead man has ever awakened a man that's alive. It's never happened. Secondly, there's no dead man that ever spoke to a man that's alive. But you will have our men get before 300 or 400 of our people, and he will tell them that the ancestors woke him up this morning, and they will all sit there and nod in agreement. And then he will tell them the ancestors spoke to him this morning, and they will be actually enthused by that. First of all, he doesn't know who his ancestors are. He is speaking a language of his enemies. He is in the land of his captivity. If his true ancestors spoke to him, it would be in a language that that man would not even understand. But this is the foolishness and the fallacy of our people. And we allow men to come before us and say this nonsense. And we let this thing pass for the simple fact that we have this stumbling block in our hearts also. We're unable to see. We're unable to hear. And we have been in the dust for so long. But those of us who are awake, those of us who are out of the dust, those men stay far away from. You can do anything to a man that's sleeping. If I became unconscious right now, you can come in my house and take everything. I won't be aware of it until I become conscious. And once I become conscious, then I know clearly that you have stolen from me. So therefore the relationship changes. So once our people begin to wake up out of the dust, and we begin to realize that these people have robbed us and they actually sought to replace us, we will have a totally different viewpoint and a vantage point by which we see them. And it will change this relationship that we have right now. And the relationship that we currently have right now is that we are as they are. We think like them, we partake in their ways and their customs, and we will give our lives for theirs. And we would give consideration to them before we give consideration to ourselves. This is the brainwashing and the fallacy and the idolatry of Christianity. Point 12. The white man is the devil. Now, Moses clearly explained to us that devils are idols. Now, the white man is not a devil. A devil is something that, like the JC statue that you see. Any statue that you're bowing to, any graven image that you bow to, those are known as devils. That's what a devil is. Devil is not a person. So this thing, but the white man is the devil, this is not so. Next, we have to consider this. If we're going to continue to say this foolishness that the white man is the devil, then we have to realize how stupid we are, because we continue to believe and follow after everything that white people tell us and teach us. So if the white man is the devil, and we seek to go after this white man, and we seek to believe that a white man died for you and is going to take you up into heaven, and you're willing to give your life for a white man, and you're sitting there in the doctor's office, or you're sitting in the emergency room and you're dying, and you would rather have a white man tend to you than an Israelite who looks just like you, then clearly your mind has been destroyed. So you cannot possibly say white people are the devil when you marry them, when you seek to be like them, and you want to be in their midst, and you see that all that they're doing is harmful to you. So you're saying that they're the devil, but yet you're doing your best to be a part of any system that they have, and we're to consider that. Last point, point 13. The power of the ancestors. The power of the ancestors told me this. The power of the ancestors woke me up this morning, and all this other madness that we hear. Now let's take all of this and put it in perspective. When we start hearing Israelites utter and mutter and murmur things, they say things that makes absolutely no sense when we take a look at our current circumstances and the plight and our demise in the midst of these nations. The power of the ancestors. Okay, let's take a look at that. These ancestors that we're speaking of, number one, they were conquered. They were beaten. They were subjugated. They were enslaved. And they were shipped all over the earth. They had absolutely no power by which to save themselves. Absolutely no power to stop what was being done to them. So when you find a man or a group of people that have absolutely no power to determine their own fate, have absolutely no power to make laws in the land by which they live, have no might against those who are above them, those people are what you would call powerless. So when we start speaking about the power of the ancestors had no power. They were conquered. And that's why we're in these lands right now with weird names, speaking these people's languages, and we're subjugated to their laws. And when they kill us, there's no might in our hands. And when we go before the judge looks like him. And the judge's ancestors are the ones that made the laws. And those laws were made to be a detriment to us. So there is no equity and there's no justice for us. But yet we continue to utter this nonsense about the power of some ancestors who clearly could not fight for themselves and protect themselves or their substance from being taken. So once we start analyzing this nonsense that we're saying, then we can start actually dealing with the reality of our circumstances. Our people are somehow so psychologically destroyed, we fail to deal with the reality of the matter. The reality of the matter is that we are conquered people. Simple as that. The reality of the matter is no white man's died for you, ever will. In fact, they're killing you. These are things that we have to deal with. The reality of the matter is that we have a problem coming together on one accord. These are things that we must deal with. And the first order of business, if you read the book of Ezra, it's either Ezra or Nehemiah, you will see clearly this. I want to say it's Ezra. When we heard the law, the first thing that we did was we separated ourselves from our enemies, from their ways and their customs. So the first order of business, if we're going to have any success when dealing with our enemies and returning back onto the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, precepts, we are to separate ourselves from our enemies. That's the first thing that we have to do. For if we continue to seek after their ways, seek after their customs, after their laws, after their holidays, if we seek to be a part of their corrupt government, that government is Christianity, we seek to be a part of that, it will be to our demise. It has failed us thus far and it will continue to fail us. So once again, the Most High is the undisputed champ. He has said his word. His word has been put forth aforetime to us, and we are bearing witness to it each and every day. The only thing is we refuse to acknowledge that what we're seeing and the words that we're hearing from the Most High are actually matching up. And the things that we're saying and the things that our enemies have taught us are in direct opposition to the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. For the simple fact that we would rather choose the words of our enemies over the words of our Creator, and this has been our demise. So we must consider our ways and our doings and make them good. Go into that law, take a close look at it, and you will see that the things that we're saying and the things that we're doing and the things that we were taught by our enemies and the things that our enemies currently are doing to us and doing in the midst of us are in direct opposition to righteousness. And therefore, this is why you see the unrighteousness in the midst of these Christian nations. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. You are to consider this. Consider the things that you're saying. And then when you say it, or when you hear our people say this madness, take a look around and see if what they're saying is actually something that you can bear witness to. And chances are it's not. However, take a look at the Most High's word, read his testimonies towards us, the words that he said and stated, the things that will come and the things that will befall us. And then you take a look and see if that is what's happening before your very eyes, and if that is what has happened in time past. And then you know exactly whose words will stand. The Most High's words, or your words, or the words of your enemies. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. You're going to have to stop murmuring, and you're going to have to learn doctrine. Peace, Israel.